So when scenic Jerry and I never got it from the ground, but she wanted to give park volunteer vests. Just random people who use the park a lot.
All right, good morning.
Yeah.
We'll get started in just a minute.
So you the park volunteers. Yeah. I sent Mike Miranda this picture. So there's these guys are doing really with the Russian jazz today. And some of the camps in there. Yeah, my son's talking to human food.
Making very
And then
profound claims.
this vehicle is doing Russian jacks and tore up the trail.
Well, that's it, because I get
He's
these
stuck there doing that, doing drugs. Yeah, right.
especially public ones.
So I didn't hear from Member Volland. I have Mr. Rivera, the sponsor, on the phone, and Mr. Martinez in the room. And so I'm not sure who is planning, who has an approach to this. So we'll see what comes. But this was a work session, I think, that was requested by members. So good morning, everybody. Today is August 4th. It's 10:11 a.m. We're here to discuss AO 2023-78, an ordinance, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Chapter 3.102, municipal use of surveillance technologies to add a requirement for body-worn camera policy, set specific standards, and to reorganize the chapter. Let's start with introductions.
George Martinez.
Randy Soul.
Karen Bronga.
Anna Brawley.
Christopher Constant. I have on the phone Mr. Cross.
Here, thank you.
And Mr. Rivera.
Here.
Anyone else on the phone?
Zach Johnson.
Zach Johnson, great. Thank you. So I am not sure the approach on this conversation. I think that we should have one of the sponsors set out the rationale for the ordinance, and then we'll hear from APD, and then maybe APDEA if they're here, and then have a conversation. So does one of the sponsors want to take the lead in this conversation?
I'll open up and request that Mr. Rivera take the lead if you can. This is Mr. Martinez, and just to be clear, Chair, you described that members requested this. This is I wasn't one of those particular members that requested, so I'm also curious to the format for today and the outcomes that we hope to achieve today. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Rivera if he could speak to the today's work session.
Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also was not one of the members who requested this work session, so wasn't necessarily prepared to speak much. So the ordinance that you all have before you is something that was put together in an interesting time frame. It was put together after the last version APD put out and before we got the news of an agreement between APD and the union APDA. And essentially what the ordinance sets to achieve is two things. And then I'll quickly go through these two things, and then happy to have this discussion today, and then at some point talk about the sponsor's intent for this ordinance come Tuesday, which maybe should shorten this work session. But anyway, the main intent here is two things. One, to make sure in perpetuity that there shall be body worn cameras on officers. That was something that was really important to myself and my co-sponsors here, that regardless of who the police chief is in the future, that we are going to have body worn cameras on officers. And the second intent, which is the real main intent here, was that when the body worn camera policy came out, there were some provisions that the co-sponsors and I were not happy with, that we didn't feel like they went far enough. For example, the provision around automatic release of footage. Generally speaking, the co-sponsors and I are not fully happy with that provision. We don't think it goes far enough. So the rationale for this ordinance was to set some type of minimum standard that all future policies should have. So we ignore the policy that is set now, and we say we're not going to mess with that policy. Instead, a year from when that policy is adopted, we're going to make sure that all future policies have this minimum standard in place. Most of what you see in the ordinance actually fairly matches what's in the adopted policy between APD and APDEA. I think there are two, maybe three differences where we felt like the policy was too weak, and so we wanted to strengthen the policy and set a higher standard for the policy to achieve. And so that's the intent of the ordinance. Happy to have discussion, and then I think, and then happy to get into the sponsor's intent for Tuesday. Okay.
Okay, so I have Ms. Brawley in the queue.
Yeah, thank you. And this is an area that I guess I'm probably mostly familiar with just as a member of the public, having watched this discussion for the last couple of years. The vote that took place, the intent that Anchorage does implement this system, and then the long process that it took to get to this point. But I think since we're here, I think it is an opportunity to understand, not to go through all of the details of the policy, but just, again, in our public meeting and being able to make it clear, what is the general path forward with this. I know we understand that we have an agreement between APD and APDEA on this policy. And then I just want to understand if there's anything in this ordinance that then conflicts with that. And I see also we have representatives from APD and APDEA, so I don't know if it's worth inviting them up.
I think we will in just a couple minutes. I share your question. I have a little more specifically. Mr. Rivera, you mentioned there were two areas where you think your proposed policy goes further than the agreed upon policy. Can you identify those two areas?
Sure. So one of them has to deal with the
Did I lose you?
Sorry, no.
Okay.
So the automatic release of footage, we tested ours so that it was a little bit more strict than what is in the approved and agreed upon policy. And then the second provision is around when police officers can view footage post incident viewing or whatever the technical term is.
Okay, thank you. So anyone else before we invite our friends from the department up? Mr. Sultan, Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, I just have a question for the authors on section 3, sub-bullet 3A2. Officers may not review a copy of recordings under the following circumstances. I just explained why that's there because I would think it'd be helpful for them to review footage to, I guess, jog their memory or what have you. Just curious why that's in there. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera or Mr. Martinez? Can you,
Yeah,
can you
thanks.
point to the section again, Mr. Sultan and Mr. Rivera?
Yes, it's section 3, subpart 3A2.
Thanks. Yeah, it's page 5,
Yeah,
line
so
30 to 39. Go ahead, Felix.
So this is one of those sections where, just one of the two sections where we go a little bit farther than the policy. So I will let APD or explain the current policy, because this provision is actually in current policy to some degree. We're expanding that a little bit. And essentially what my understanding of the implementation of the policy that's agreed upon by the parties is that under some specific circumstances, officers will not be able to view the footage until after they give an initial interview. So they're going to be able to, they're going to do an initial interview, and then to get their untarnished, to give their untarnished view of what happened, and then after they give that interview, they will have access to the body-worn camera footage. And I guess I would ask, that is a provision that is in the policy itself, and it was a provision that APD advocated for if they wanted to speak to it. What the ordinance that we put forward does is, I think it adds some additional categories to that specific provision.
All right, Mr. Martinez.
I just wanted to ask the Mr. Rivera if he thought it would be, just before moving on to kind of hearing about the current policy from APD and any thoughts that we want to hear from APDA, if you think it's valuable to speak to the intent now, because I think it is, because so this way we have a clear understanding of where we intend to go with this, and so that may shape a little bit about the questioning and the understandings of this conversation.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to. So the co-sponsors and I had a good meeting with APDEA, and then essentially in all of our discussions and deliberations, and with various advocacy groups, and with all of our deliberations, essentially what we came down to is that this is a really tricky subject for the assembly to dive into, regardless of how frustrated the community might be, how frustrated many of us are in this entire process. This is just a legally difficult area for the assembly as a legislative branch that doesn't manage labor negotiations to delve into. Instead, what the assembly could do, and what we often do when it comes to labor issues, is put forward assembly resolutions which put our policy intent and guidance to the administration and to the community at large to let everyone know here is where the assembly stands on these issues. So after consultation with various parties, which are likely going to see on Tuesday, frankly, probably even before the public hearing is open, is a motion to postpone the ordinance indefinitely. And then at some future meeting, you will see a resolution being put forward, specifically around some of the provisions where there is a difference in the ordinance and the adopted policy, so that the assembly can weigh in from a policy guidance perspective, not necessarily from a policy creation and ordinance perspective. So that the hope is that in the future, the parties will be able to work on these issues, especially the automatic release issue, and come to some type of agreement on what that looks like.
Thank you. That is helpful information. So maybe then that does what Mr. Martinez suggested maybe makes this a shorter work session than it might otherwise have been. I don't know if it's appropriate. Maybe council can weigh in. Dean, I don't know if it's appropriate that we speak briefly to another item that's on the agenda for Tuesday night, but isn't on the meeting notice, but it's related.
I'm sorry, I wasn't watching what the related topic might be. but
It's the
related to what
purchase,
was noticed.
the purchase of body worn cameras. That's on the agenda. It's in the tens. Okay.
Seems all right. to me.
Council's nodding. I don't know, Chief, if you want to brief us on the purchase that you have on the agenda. So why don't you come on up? Because I think that gets to the rub of all of this is where are the cameras, what's the plan? And since we have that item on the agenda, maybe we can have a brief chat about that now to move towards more of a positive and implementation.
Chief Curl, Chief Mike Curl. So where do you want me to start?
We have an appropriation for approximately $3.5 million for the purchase of body worn cameras.
So we have two different items that deal with body worn cameras on the agenda. One is in the G section, I think it's G2 or G3, which deals with, I need to move money from the tax levy from 2022 to 2023 to be able to, from the technology tax levy, to pay for the body worn camera and the digital evidence management system. So what's on the agenda for under 10? I'm not sure which one it is. It's the contract with, we went through the contracting. We got the proposal from Axon. We can now release it that they were the ones who won the bid for APD. We've been in contract negotiations with them. We have the contract and basically just need assembly permission to go forward and sign the contract. So that would not only for body worn cameras, that's for our in-car video, our interview rooms. It's for the entire digital evidence management system.
So it's item 10D9 AM 616-2023. I was painfully underestimating how much it was from memory. It's actually 6.5 million. So,
Over 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Helpful information. So the question that somebody brought up to me when I told them this was happening in relationship to this notice meeting, they asked the question, is this a limited rollout or is this cameras for everybody?
No, this is the initial limited rollout. We're competing with every other entity across the country for body worn cameras. And with the 30 that our initial purchase is going to get and all the other in-car video systems, by the time we do our test period, we'll start receiving additional cameras and it'll be a slow progression where the people that need cameras will have cameras.
So what is your kind of assessment of the timeline to get to the full force?
By the end of next year, for sure.
That was the only question that was asked to me, Mr.
And not the
Martinez.
entire force, the people that we're going to
Right,
require to have
That's what I
cameras.
mean, the entire force of those who will be within the policy. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Braga next.
Thank you, Chief. When you described, and I know we'll get into this on Tuesday, but the upgrades to the overall tech and system in terms of the back end are we upgrading the entire system and changing how we do it today to be able to accommodate the new technology that we're requiring?
So we're changing the in-car video system and our interview room system. So we're going under one digital evidence management system. So this is all one package,
Right.
which provides for all our in-car video, body worn cameras, and the interview rooms. So that's what this is for. And the technology fund, if you guys are going to be at the Public Safety Committee meeting on Wednesday, I'm going to go over what money we've received from the tax levy, what we've spent, what's encumbered, and what our future needs are, so that it's clear as it can be as far as what good stewards we've been of the money, because we're like right on the money.
Right on. And just to follow, so the new integrated system, the digital management system, is a new thing for the municipality?
It's a new company. So we don't have body worn cameras, obviously,
Mhm.
but we do have in-car video and we do have interview rooms, which are by a different company. This basically brings everything under one umbrella for our digital evidence management. We also have the ability to, we take pictures with our phones with an Axon app that we already use Axon for. So this will just put everything under one system, which will make it a lot smoother and easier for us to operate.
And then just to follow up on it, it'll make it easier for us to understand the oversight and the appropriations for it, because it's all under one umbrella as well. So there's a lot of learning for all of us.
Well, the learning is going to be the appropriations, especially for the tax levy. The big chunk of the first 2.5 years is for the CAD RMS system, which will explain all that, which we needed to do because our CAD RMS was dying. CAD RMS is our computer aided dispatch records management system. Basically, it's the heart and the brain of everything that happens at APD. We needed to upgrade that first before we went to any digital evidence management. So we'll break out that all down on Wednesday so that everyone can see where the money went, what we spent on, what's left over for us to actually be able to go forward with the body worn camera purchase.
Thank you, Chief.
Ms. Braga.
Okay, so you said there's going to be 30 cameras to start with, and then 6.5 million to purchase. Is that for just the 30, or you're just
No.
getting 30 of them to start with, and then you're adding more?
Right. So the
Gotcha.
30 cameras initially, 6.5 million, that's over the life of the whole system. So that's, I don't want to, it's over 300 cameras that we're going to get. It includes all in-car video for all the vehicles, includes our interview rooms. Of course, it includes support. There's a lot of other, there's hardware, there's software, there's licensing fees that are associated with all this, and then just the general contract. So that's spread out over 5 years, and it should be in the contract that you can see the breakdown, because we couldn't sign a contract if we can't show them where the money is coming from. And this is based on future projections of tax levy money coming in to actually pay for year 2, year 3, year 4.
So that's in the binder, and I haven't looked at the binder yet, or not.
I don't know that we will have the contract in there. I haven't looked yet either, but normally we don't see that level of detail. We just see the memo and maybe some backup, but it would be maybe interesting to see. One clarification: when you said the life of the project, 5 years, you mean the life of the implementation of the project?
Oh, no, I mean, it will be fully implemented, hopefully, like I said, before the end of next year, once we get all the bugs worked out, and then we'll just continue to use this product for 5 years. And then obviously at the end of 5 years, the contract is up. We'll have to renegotiate a contract with either the same company, whoever the lowest bidder is for the next.
Okay, so what you're speaking to is the specific relationship with the vendor. The project, to I think all of us, is from now until something better comes along.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Mr. Evans, do you want to speak or not? Sure. All right, thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Grab a microphone, yeah. Otherwise, the record won't get you.
Good morning. My name's Darrell Evans, President of the Anchorage Police Department and Employees Association. The only thing I'd like to say is that on behalf of the APDA, we'd like to say that we fully support the rollout of the body-worn cameras as soon as possible. And through the collective bargaining process, we believe that we have come to a resolution on the policy right now and the procedures to make that happen as soon as possible. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anyone have questions? So anyone on the phone have questions? I want to thank everybody for your time, and this is how it's done. I think I look forward to hearing how the conversation evolves for the resolution. Maybe that's a conversation in the Public Safety Committee as well, just how that might work so that we make sure everybody's at the table who needs to be there. So when we get there, it feels like it's done collectively and as a team. So thank you, everybody. I guess we'll reconvene shortly for another work session. We're adjourned.